This is session 1 of what I'm calling mercy. And I thought this week we just might explore a little bit of what the meaning is, the mercy of God. Firstly, it's easy to align the word mercy with pity, but they're not the same. If we have pity on someone, it's a feeling, and it may not go beyond the feeling. But if we have mercy, that implies action. Mercy is not getting what we deserve. Judgment's getting what we deserve. Mercy is not getting what we deserve, whereas grace is getting what we don't deserve. But today, or this week, we're looking at mercy, not getting what we deserve. Now, if someone killed a man and they were in court and the judge came in and said, "Oh, I'm best friends with your dad, you can go free," that would be mercy, but it's not justice. He would simply be a corrupt judge. God's a God of mercy, but he's also the God of righteousness and justice. So when we come before God's judgment, he says we can go free, but only because the penalty has already been paid. And of course that was paid by Jesus. The word mercy actually comes from a medieval Latin word, which means price paid. God's mercy must go along with God's justice, because God is not a corrupt judge. Jesus is the face of God's mercy, but that doesn't mean that God was not merciful before Jesus came into the world. When the Hebrews were going through the desert on the way to the promised land, God made a covenant with them at Mount Sinai, and then he gave instructions to build a tabernacle. And in the very inner part of that tabernacle was the Ark of the Covenant, a wooden box. But in that wooden box were 3 things: the stone tablets that the 10 Commandments were written on, so that was God's covenant with his people. There was a jar of manna, and manna was what they collected every morning for food, but they couldn't keep it for more than 24 hours because it just went off. And yet this manna in the box never went off because it was a symbol of God's constant provision. The third thing was Aaron's rod. Now Aaron was the head of the priests, and so this was a symbol of his authority, his God-given authority. The very top of that box was known as the mercy seat. And once a year, the priest would go in with the blood from a sacrifice, and he'd sprinkle it on the mercy seat, and that gave forgiveness for the whole people for the whole year. God's mercy was such that he knew, even though he'd made that covenant, he knew that people were not able to keep it, and so in his mercy he made this provision. The sacrifice of an animal could bring forgiveness and freedom so that people were not getting the punishment that they deserved. The covenant that God made with his people was sacred. It could not be broken without punishment. God is a God of mercy. This is who he is. And that's what we're going to explore more this week.
Praise the Lord, his mercy is more. Stronger than darkness, new every morn. Our sins they are many, his mercy is more. One love to remember the wrongs we have done. On days that all knowing he comes from the sun, thrown into the sea without bottom or shore. Our sins they praise the Lord.